All right, in this first lesson, we're going to learn how to begin making a female starting with a box. I'm going to import our image into the front image plane. Make sure you don't move these image planes before you bring in the image, or else the image is going to end up a different size than you want it to. I line these images up in Photoshop to make them line up with each other, horizontally. But if you change the zoom in the side or the front view, it's going to mess all that up. It's probably just easier to just reset the Maya and just start with a new scene. All right, we're going to move them out of the way in the perspective view, and we're also going to turn on looking through camera only in the so we only see them in the side views, in the orthographic views. Notice how I have interactive creation turned off. Create a cube. I mean, you could do it with interactive creation, but I just find it easier to just create it that way. Making the background a little darker, you could do that by holding down Alt and hitting B to change the background. Created an edge loop. Edge ring split. And I'm duplicating with a -1 scale in X and an instance. So what an instance means is that we're going to be able to basically have a mirroring effect going on. There's a reflection that you can do, but it doesn't reflect cuts and things like that. So instance is the only option, I believe, unless there's something I don't know about. As far as all my research, instance is still the only way to go. Just turning down the alpha gain a little bit so that it's basically making the image planes a little bit more transparent. You can select the camera to get to the image plane. All right, once we make these more transparent, we're going to move. By the way, with an instance, if you move the whole object, if I move just half of that box right now, the other half will not follow it. The instance will only respond to component functions. So you're working with the verts, you're working with the edges, but don't actually move that whole box, or else the other one won't follow it. We're just going to line it up with the waist, the midsection. Doesn't really matter where you start. I find this a good place to start. Go on the front view and line those up. So the concept with this is one of the mistakes that a lot of beginning modelers make is that they go into too much detail at first, and they just start creating all these edges and verts, and then they're just they got all this spaghetti that they're trying to move around and wrangle. And what we're doing here is it's kind of like the same concept as sketching. You sketch out basic forms, and then you get those kind of worked out, and then you go to more and more detail from there. So you don't start sketching by going in and detailing out an eyeball, because you might find out that once you're done with that eyeball, oh no, my arm doesn't fit in this scene. I need to move this eyeball that I spent a long time making. In 3D you could do that kind of thing, but I usually find that the less edges and components we make to begin with, the easier it is to work with. Yeah, and I'm a big believer in that. And other people have different methods of doing this. There's patch modeling, where you go in and you just create really detailed, nice pieces. You just go through piece by piece and make everything. That's another viable method, but in box modeling we don't generally do that. We just go from the bottom up, simple to complex, and I like it because it feels a little more organized that way in my brain. All right, so we're just blocking out this basic shape. Notice I'm doing everything from the shift. I believe it's a shift right click. Instead of going up through the menu, because it just takes too long. All those extra mouse clicks are gonna take more time. And of course you hit spacebar to go between the views. Also, I like once I hit extrude, I don't like to use the default extrude tool because um, it's usually based on the normal that the face begins with, and it just usually just takes it in a weird direction. So I hit W right after I do the extrude function and bring it back to a neutral thing where I could just use my arrow keys, uh, my my gizmo, my arrow gizmo to kind of move it around in object space or world space or whatever kind of space I want. I don't want the direction of that face deciding where my extrude goes. Sometimes you'll notice it'll splay the extrude out and make it this big wide crazy thing. So I'm going to start with these shoulders. We're actually going to change these shoulders a little bit later, but this is a good way to start them. This is a way that particularly works well for male forms because they do have defined shoulders that go into the pectorals. At this stage, it doesn't really matter that much. Usually, I'll do them either this way or I'll just extrude them straight out without having that bend at the top. All right, we're twisting the forearm 90 degrees because we're going to have the hands facing down, and the palms facing down means that the radius and ulna of the forearm are actually twisted over each other about 90 degrees. So to get that kind of more realism in the flow, the geometry, we're just going to twist it 90 degrees. If the arm wasn't twisted, it would be facing forward. The hand would be facing forward. Okay. Next lesson, we're going to continue blocking and just getting a little bit more detail into this thing.